giving 100% at what you do. And, um, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I've done everything I can, and this is where I'm at or whatever, I think that's all you can really ask from yourself. Yeah, I don't want to say it's a simple question, but I tell that to my kids after every loss. I go, can you guys go in the mirror right there and look at yourself and say, did you give 100%? If you can give 100% and you lose, then fine. I'm okay with that. But
Right.
if you can't say that, then we got to work on some things.
All right, I'm here with the one and only Adam AJ Johnson. Adam, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure being here.
Adam, you are a 3-time All-American at USC, a 44-time champion on the AVP, 16 of those victories with Karch Kiraly, a 2-time Manhattan Beach Open winner. You ranked 10th on the all-time pro beach volleyball event list. You won the KOB in 1994, and you're part of the Beach Volleyball Hall of Fame for the CBVA. You're also the owner and director of the Adam Johnson Volleyball Academy in Austin, Texas. That's adamjohnsonvolleyballacademy.com. And your IG on Instagram is Adam Johnson Volleyball Academy. Adam, again, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Right on. Let's get right into the first question. What does living an inspired life mean to you?
Living an inspired life. Well, I think, for me right now, I think it's, I don't want to say it's a two-part question, but I think for me, it is going to be a two-part question. And maybe looking at my profession, playing on the beach, and then maybe my afterlife, if you will, with the club and all that kind of stuff. So, it wasn't too hard to live an inspired life playing on the beach. I mean, it was, it's just going to the beach and having that be your office is inspiring enough. And
For
so,
sure.
for me during those times though, I was really, I really looked at other athletes, other great athletes in their professions, and listened to a lot of the things that they said, how they trained, all those kind of things. And, their goals and whatnot. And, I don't consider myself in their same level, but, I try to strive to get there. And those guys really, did a great thing for me. And I inspired to be like them, and put that kind of time and energy into it and whatnot. And as I kind of transitioned into my second career, if you will, having 2 kids, a lovely wife, that alone right there kind of got me going, and want to keep going. And coaching juniors now for about 18 years. The thing that I get out of that and what inspires me every time is the kids that I'm now working with. I kind of hooked up with a really good group of kids, 5 kids who are going to play Division I beach volleyball. And to listen to them say, hey, I just want to be 1% better at something than one of these other kids. And I agree with that 100%. And that comes into the practice too. But, like one of them had this, it looked like a health bar kind of thing, I guess she made, because it wasn't packaged well. And she said, you got to try this. So I tried it. And I said, it looked terrible. But, look too healthy, but it tasted really, really good. And they all these girls that I'm working with they're all vegetarian now. One started, and then they all kind of got onto it. And they go, Coach Adam, you might want to try this, and you should watch the Netflix documentary, The Game Changer. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Absolutely.
And so I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. Just listen. And after I was done with it, the next day, boom, I started it. I've been going since March. I think it was March 7th. No meat. Now I was a little. I wasn't sure about vegan or vegetarian, and I got shut down the first day by one of these other girls that I worked with. They said, oh, yeah, I said, I've gone vegan, and they go, well, really? That's cool. What'd you have for breakfast? And I said, well, I had oatmeal and oat milk and and bananas and honey. And she looked at me, she goes, no, no, you're not vegan. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, no, honey comes from an animal. And I was like, okay, a bee is not an animal, but it's an insect. I view myself as a vegetarian, let's put it that way. So I still eat my eggs, but I'm kind of going that direction. So those girls, to see those kind of things really inspire me. And then when I see them play at tournaments, and these girls are going to UCLA, one decommitted to USC. How, I don't know, but she was young, so she still might go there. But a couple of them are going to FSU. One's going to ASU. I've worked with another kid this summer already from Stanford. She played her freshman year there. Another one that's going to go over, she's a junior, so she's going to be playing at Hawaii. So watching all these kids practice and play in tournaments, and then coming and talk to me and saying, I need to do this. What do I need to do? I'm kind of like, wow, that's exciting, for me, and so that inspires me to get creative with practice and, try and give the knowledge I have to them in every situation possible.
That's awesome. Being vegetarian in Texas, that might be a little challenging, huh?
I'm not going to lie to you, bro. It is tough. I mean, I will say I'm a barbecue connoisseur now, or well, was, I guess, but it is tough. It's not easy because there's a lot of good barbecue here. But at that same tournament that the girl called me out on being vegan, one of the guys I was getting a ride home with had a Tesla, so he had to go get it juiced up to make the trip home from Houston. And so there's this barbecue place called Rudy's, and they had a couple of them, and we ended up going in there and eating. And I said, honey, to my wife, I'm eating at Rudy's, and she's like, oh, you're cheating already, huh? And I said, no, I'm having a big old baked potato, and that's about it. Smothered it in barbecue sauce, so it's all good.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I'm vegan myself, and
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I actually feel amazing. I feel so much better than I did before. Game Changers was a big part of that. So
yeah. Okay. So you know that. I mean, I've seen that thing 3 times now, maybe going on 4. So I'm not afraid to watch it again.
Yeah, I feel like more and more athletes are kind of at least experimenting with it and giving it a shot.
Well, it can't, and my dad passed away of a heart attack, and he had, the corroded arteries and all that kind of stuff, high blood pressure and whatnot. And as you saw in that, they did some studies on all that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that I like to see when someone's trying to, I don't want to say they weren't even trying to sell it to you. They're just like, this is what, here are the facts. You can do whatever you want. And I kind of feel that way when I'm telling you or whoever, I say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's pretty cool. I enjoy it. I'm not trying to change you, but check it out and see if you can get 1 or 2 things.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, this project, Adam, is about tools to become inspired both in and out of the game, specifically for the youth athlete. I just want to talk to you about practice. What does having an inspired practice mean to you?
Well, I think having an inspired practice, right off the bat, you have to communicate what you really want to get out of the practice. Before each practice, you have your practice plan, and you have set goals, and hopefully you meet them all. Sometimes we get into a certain drill, and we didn't quite get to finish the practice. I'm not saying that doesn't mean we're inspired, but to be able to achieve what we went out to achieve at the beginning of practice is very uplifting for the kids. And I think that the more that they have those types of practices, and what I'm finding coaching juniors now for 20 years, it's about getting the message in here. Everybody's got a really good skill, but 90% of it, your game's got to come from the mental side. And so I truly believe that if you're exercising that muscle, and you're really setting your goals to a higher standard, you might not always get them, and it's okay to fail. It's not the end of the world. You just want to do better the next time, and nobody's perfect. And that's the other thing that I try and get across to kids also. I mean, I've lost many tournaments, in the finals. I'm not happy about it, but I didn't give up, and I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a learning experience. So that's kind of what we try to do in practices. And sometimes the kids come to us and say, "Hey, I really want to, work on maybe going playing defense more to my right side.
Mm.
I'm having trouble doing this or that, and then once they do it and they get it, they're pretty excited, and then that just kind of motivates them a little bit more. Like, whoa, I got that. Okay, now the trick is if they can, continue to do that the next practice and so on. So, that to me, and then when like I said, when after practice is over, we talk and say, hey, did we accomplish things? And sometimes we don't. And we say, okay, then we need to get after that next practice and make sure we do. But all in all, they're, pretty solid. Like I said, this particular group I'm working with, pretty solid kids.
That's awesome. I want you to think about these questions also from two different perspectives, one as a player and one as a coach. And if you don't mind answering this next question like that, what does having an inspired game mean to you? Because it is definitely different than practice.
Having an inspired game, what does that mean to me? I think, I can use many examples of, I had the most fun playing with Karch, purely because he was, he's the greatest, in my opinion, of course, the greatest player out there ever.
Shout out to Karch.
Yeah, there's always, and Phil Dalhouser. I mean, he's an amazing player too. And the great thing about all this is we're always going to be able to debate, and unfortunately, there was a difference in court size and rules and stuff. And that's, to me, those changes are so dramatic in the sport that you have to say, this is, the 90s and before, and this is the 2000s and ahead. I mean, they're not even the same game. And I use this example, wherein I just say, if I was playing on the old court and I was touching 50% of the balls in defense. Now I stopped playing for 5 years, came back, after 2000, came back in 2005 for a season, but I was then touching 85% of the balls with the same height of his blocker, 6'5" or whatever, not a huge blocker, but that's the difference in the game. And and I'm not saying it's, one's better than the other. Of course, I played in a time when I believe, 30 by 30 is huge, and that takes a lot. So you're always going to have those arguments, but being inspired as a player, especially when you're playing with someone like Karch, who's so focused out there. I mean, it doesn't take much to get inspired when you're playing with him. If you don't, there's something missing right there. And so, that was very easy for me. One, because he was really the first partner I had that I didn't have to worry about anything, and all, yeah, I had other partners that were great, Randy Stoklos, Jose Loyola, Ricky Ludes, all these guys. But I always had to worry about something, there was just a little something. And with Karch, I didn't have to worry. And that inspired me to really be able to kind of focus on what I needed to do, which, to make myself better, to help the team, have success. So as a player, that was very easy for me to do, playing with a guy like Karch.
Since you mentioned Karch, and since I was there in the 1998 Hermosa Open as a ball boy, I actually witnessed how
the last serve
and how he bowed to you. I was wondering if you could kind of talk about what that meant to you.
I was laughing. I mean, it's kind of like, it was kind of like the same thing. One of these times that we went out to dinner on one of the tournaments, and he happened to say, I think you've got the most technically sound arm swing I've ever seen. And I mean, coming from Karch, that's huge, right? But I was like, hey, can you pass the pepper, please? Like I don't know. I was like, whatever kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was bowing to me, I mean, he's having a little fun out there. And, it's nice to see Karch have a little fun out there. And, I was just excited for us, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's a team sport. No, I've always been a huge team advocate, whether it's 6-man or baseball or football, whatever. So the 2-man beach volleyball is, it definitely is a sport. I mean, it's there, and it's a team sport. And I have my good games. He has his bad games. I have my bad games. He has good games. And hopefully that they offset each other, and we can do stuff. Although if we did lose, it was my fault, and if we won, it was his doing. So that's when you play with Karch, that's the deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had no problem with that whatsoever.
That's awesome. That's funny. Going back to practice and the inspired game feeling, what's the main difference, and how does one carry over to the other?
I think the difference there shouldn't be a difference, in my opinion, of your practice, going in as you are playing in a match. I think they should both be the same. If you have that same intensity level at practice, and again, I go back to Karch, it was fun playing, practicing with Karch, because he practiced as hard as he played in a tournament. And I think, of course, the obvious element of a tournament is, this is our lifestyle, and this is our living. So, there's definitely more pressure when you're playing in a tournament. But if you can, I think if you can reach the same level in both, then I think it just makes it easier to practice, and then actually to play. And, again, it comes down to the mental part of that. And the more you do it, and the more you're successful at it, the better off you are. It's just like when before you win your first tournament, you're wondering if you can do it.
Right.
And then when you do it, you hope it just kind of takes off, because you have the mentality to be able to win now. You know how to. You just want to kind of continue. And, like playing with Ricky Ludes. I won my first tournament with Pat Powers, and then he dumped me. I think it was 5 or 6 tournaments later, which, and I just did a Zoom thing with Pat, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, can I tell the truth to your kids?" And he's like, "No," and we have fun. I like Pat, don't get me wrong, and all that. But he decided to go a different direction, and I hooked up with Ricky, and we won 3 out of the last 5 tournaments that season. And then, the big one being the U.S. championships. So stuff happens. But the difference between the practice and the game, I think the more you do it, and the more it becomes more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about mindset, Adam. Give us a little glimpse of the AJ mindset. Again, as a player and as a coach, the mindset pre, during, and post training sessions and games.
Well, training, it was kind of interesting. Like when I first started out, it was hard to find a good partner. I wasn't that good. I just wasn't good, period. But, give you an example. I had, back when I first started, I think if you practice with 4 people, you might have 4 balls at the practice, or maybe 2, because one probably, from each team or whatever. So I ended up, buying a ball, and I'd go down, and I had to work on my jump serve, of course, and I'd hit 100 jump serves, but not going to lie, it sucked every time I had to go chase it. And so I was very fortunate early on to, get Spalding as a sponsor. So I might be the guy that actually started bringing everybody bringing all the balls down, because I brought 24 balls to my practice from then on, and I'd hit 24 serves, and then I'd go shag them, and that just made it a lot easier. But I think getting the mindset of the next I don't like to look too far in advance. I know Karch is the same way. I'm looking for this pass, and or this point, whatever, the serve, whatever I'm doing right then and there. So I never take too many things ahead of time. It's like, let's do this. And my girls over the years have always, okay, let's get 5 more points. We need 5 more points. I said, how about we get a pass right here, and let's worry about that. And then we get the side out, and we work 1 point at a time. They're like, oh, you're no fun, but that's kind of the mentality that I've always had. And I think that's why, I had a lot of success with Karch. I mean, Karch is the epitome of that. I think I heard him say something like, when they went to the Olympics, they weren't planning to win the gold. They were planning to win the next point.
Mm,
And those were back in the days when it was side out scoring. So, scoring a point was it was tough to do,
for sure.
so I appreciate that. So, um, going into a tournament, depending on where it is, I always like to get in there a day ahead, get in like maybe around 4 or 5 o'clock, go to the beach where we're playing and bump the ball around for about a half an hour. And then really just start to feel the wind, feel the sand, go out to dinner, have a good night's sleep, get up, and whoever we play. Usually it was a qualifier,
Hmm.
and so you didn't know anything about them, and so those, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes, and it happened often, but it might be 5-all for the first 25 minutes or something, and then we go off and beat them 15-5, in the next 10 minutes or something like that, because you figure them out, because sometimes people don't play the same. They're kind of unorthodox in a way, and they do stuff that we're not used to seeing with other pros. So that kind of takes some time getting used to, but once you get it, then you just kind of roll with it. So, um, you know, in the tent, depending on who we played is really what I was thinking about. If we played, whoever, like I remember when Karch and I were playing Jose and Kent, we didn't really talk amongst each other and say, hey, this is what we need to do. We already knew what we needed to do.
Mm.
And those were some fun games. And I've never seen Karch get so excited, because we were both that year coming off injuries. Jose dumped me, Kent dumped him, and they beat us early in the season. And then I think it was in Minneapolis when we broke through, or it was either Minneapolis or Sacramento, and we ended up beating them. And it was Karch just was, I've never seen him so excited in my life. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I didn't even know how to react other than just be excited for him because he was, getting excited. So, but you sit in the tent, you make sure you're eating the proper food, so you're ready to roll. You're drinking, you're doing all those things. I tried to keep a little. I was always nervous. I was nervous going out to play every match, and I think that's good. If you're not nervous, I think there's something wrong.
Hmm.
Um, but I tried to stay as calm as possible, in the players' tent, and just try and relax my body and conserve as much energy as possible.
I love that. Great mindset stuff. Okay, so AJ, you had one of the best jump serves in the history of the game. Could you give us a little glimpse of the mindset specifically on that skill? And before you answer, like I told you before, I've watched you for countless hours, specifically on the jump serve. And I noticed you take this moment, and I see a lot of players do that now, but I want to ask you about that moment right before you serve the ball or you execute your technique. What's going on in your mind?
Well, now that you think about it, or now that you ask the question, I should say, I was very fortunate in my volleyball career. I had some great coaches all along, from juniors and high school, club, and then into college and the national team and that kind of thing. So my high school coach, Bill Ashen, used to get us prepared by doing this visualization, right? He'd get us in a little dark room, get comfortable. We're kind of, at first I was kind of like, well, what's going on here? But then he'd kind of walk around the room and talk and say, he basically, what he would do is he would have us visualize, okay, you're walking in the gym, you're starting to warm up, you're doing this, you're doing that. Here comes the first serve. It's a pass to your right side. You move over to your right, you get the perfect platform pass into it. The set goes outside, you move into your coverage position, that kind of thing. And he did that for about 15, 20 minutes. And we won CIF 3 years in a row, 81, 82, and 83. back when he was coaching. So we had some good talent, no doubt, but I think that helped me a ton. So when I would go back to serve, depending on what side I'm on and the wind and all that kind of stuff, I kind of know where I want to hit the ball. I'll just say if it's down the middle or whatever, depending on what side. When I go back and then I put that ball right there, I just kind of close my eyes for a second and I just visualize where my hand's going to hit on the ball to make it go to that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If I was serving from the right side or the right corner down the line and I wanted to do, an inside out kind of move, I'd visualize my hand making contact with the ball. Not so much the person over there, but just watching the ball make its, tail off away from the player. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I was trying to do something like that and it did the complete opposite. Whether I got an ace or not, it's a different story. But that's kind of what I was thinking right before I went to serve.
That's awesome. Just to build on that, just for a second, I'm aware of visualization techniques. You're saying that you're visualizing the actual contact point of the ball, depending on, again, like you said, those elements and the situation of the game and all that. Did you also visualize the result of the ball? I know you didn't say that I know you said that you didn't worry about the player, but how about the result of the ball placement?
I always saw it hitting the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it, I always saw it hitting the ground. I didn't really see a player making a move or a shank pass or anything like that. So I always would see it hit the ground. And, like I said, it didn't always work. I remember when Jose and I played Karch, and I think we played Karch and Kent in Chicago. I think it was like 95 or 6. And I think we had 19 missed serves, right, in a game, and it was like 13-12 or 13-11. Karch and Kent beat us, and we were just so confident with our siding out that we could just go back and bomb. But to think that you missed 19 serves on it with a clock, against a team like that was kind of crazy. But like I said, it doesn't always work, and I'd like to think that I was spot on, all the time. But it's called life. Sometimes you're just not, for whatever reason. So that wasn't our day for sure.
Well, your jump serve definitely inspired many people, including myself. So thank you for being such a craftsman with it, because
and I'm trying to pass it along to these kids, because these kids these days, and it's kind of sad, and I guess I'm a little snob when it comes to certain things, but I don't see them getting the proper training that I did. And so when I get somebody like these kids, sometimes it's too late because they just can't get it out of their system, and sometimes they'll sit and listen, and because I'll get somebody and I'm not going to try and change their game. Oh, you got to do it my way. Sometimes there's only a year before they go to school. You just got to kind of tweak things here and there to try and make it more consistent. I'm all about consistency, and my wife hates that. She's like, you're just so right here all the time. You're just, I don't get excited here. You don't get really bummed out. You're just right here all the time. And I said, well, I don't know. It's calming for me. I mean, sure, when I win a tournament, I'll get excited. When I lose, I'm not going to go ballistic, but I'm going to learn from my mistakes and come back, harder. So.
Yeah. And we'll talk about emotion in a second, but that even keeled mindset seems to be a trend in champions.
I hope so.
Yeah. Just to stay on mindset just for one more minute. Can you just talk about stoppage time? There's a lot of stoppage time in not just beach volleyball, but all sports, right? How do you, as a player, utilize that stoppage time to your advantage?
I'm just trying to think back at some of the times when we had, stuff like that going on. I mean, depending on the scenario, right? I remember when I came back in 2005, I can't remember who I was playing with. I should, a lefty guy, but um, I was playing against Owen McKibben, an ex-teammate at SC, and I stubbed. I was kind of trying to dig in. This up in Santa Barbara. I was trying to dig into the sand a little bit, so I was kind of, trying to make a little. I was kind of digging in with my feet, and my toe hit this what I thought was a little pebble, but it turned out to be an iceberg. Because it was really small at the top, but it was huge down below. Thing didn't move and tore my front of my toe off. I mean, I've never seen so much blood. It was just bleeding. It was just ugh. I mean, to this day, it when it dries out, it kind of cracks a lot. And anyways, um, I had to take my time, until everything was good. The Band-Aid was good. The first time it went on, it was too tight, and Owen's getting all upset, and I'm like, dude, chill out, man. It's not like I'm trying to mess with you, even though I am. I was one, and I think they made some rules because of me. I used to have a towel over to the side, and I'll take all the time in the world a referee will give me. I'll go over, if I have, sand, I'll go over there, kind of take my time. I'll make it look like it's going fast. Actually teach my girls to do this. So you can't be obvious. Some of my girls will go, I've got sand on my hand. I got to get off, so you got to make it look like you're, doing it. You just kind of keep moving it back and forth. So it looks like you're doing it a lot, things like that. But, depending on if you're ahead in the game or you're behind, the more behind in this situation like that, I'm taking more time trying to make them think about it a little bit more. And so I can kind of regroup, try and take the energy away from them, and then bring it onto our side.
Yeah.
When someone else is taking time and we're ahead, that really didn't affect me a whole lot for some reason. I wasn't like, oh, here we go. You're trying to do this. Certain individuals it did, right? They're just irritating little, people or whatever. And it got to me, but it didn't affect my play, and sometimes you just got to, I would just go to the side and get a glass of water and sit down, because most of the time, if we're taking time, it's because the other team's the one that's taking the time.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'll take as much time as needed. And I've been in that situation many a times. I'll talk to the referee for a while. Hey, that just adds a little more to it. Oh, the line's a little outside. Let's go fix the line here. Take my time there. Got to fix all the potholes in the sand, those kind of things. And then you're just, you're letting the other team kind of fume, and you try and get away with as much as you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just remember you being a master of having the towel right by your side every time. No other player used to do that, but you used to use all that time. And just last question on that, like, how much of that time was thinking or being in the moment, thinking about the last play or trying to set up the next play, all in that stoppage time?
Yeah, it's more like, what do we need to do going forward?
Adjustments.
Besides pass the next ball, because usually we didn't have the point. So you pass the next ball, but what haven't we been doing, or what haven't I been doing, or whatever. What do we need to do better? And
cool.
It was kind of more of those types of little things. I didn't get too far ahead, but there were some things like, guy, you're hitting this guy's line all the time. He's picking it up. Well, let's think about maybe either hitting it or hitting the cut shot. Kind of little things like that. Just talking to yourself.
That makes sense. It reminds me of what Karch said. He was like, yeah, we just always we're trying to figure out a puzzle from the other side. It was always a puzzle.
Yeah. Well, he's the puzzle master.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move into emotion, AJ. What are the differences and similarities in emotion from both an inspired practice and an inspired game?
Again, I think, if emotionally, if you can get to the same spot, I mean, if you're in the same spot practicing as you are when you're playing, I think that's a win-win.
For sure.
It's because then you're training at a high level, and that's what your ultimate goal is. So, emotionally, I'd get up early for practice, and then I'd have time to think about it, which is always a good thing. and, driving down there, I'd listen to my music or whatever, and then get ready to rumble, you know.
For sure.
I think, again, I could talk about Karch all day. That was easy to practice with Karch. But like when I was practicing with other players like Jose or Randy or Steve Timmons or Ricky or stuff like that, those were definitely different. And, I think that was a learning experience for me, what I needed to do for myself to get out of it. There was definitely two sides to that book, if you will, or
For sure.
story, whatever you want to say. But I think the ultimate goal, and I think I got it, within the first few years of playing, is trying to be as consistent in practice as you would be on the court. Simple as that.
Absolutely. No, for sure. But that is a skill, not everybody has that. And so what tools can you offer for the youth athlete that might be struggling with managing their emotions during the game or during practice?
Well, and I tell some, because I can see a lot of these kids. I was by no means a perfect athlete growing up. I mean, I used to break tennis rackets, and a great story. You're way too young for this, but I lived in Manhattan Beach when I first started playing tennis, and then moved to Laguna Beach. But um, they had these blue chip and green chip stamps that you used to get at the stores, the grocery stores. And then you get these books, you fill up the books, and then you can go wherever it was. It was about an hour drive away, and you can get these toys or, these things. And so I ended up getting a Pancho Segura tennis racket, and it was a wood one. And went down to the park as soon as I got home and broke it. And my mom was pissed, because I had a bad attitude. I had a bad attitude. And that they let that one slide, although I mean, my mom hammered me, don't get me wrong. She was not happy with me at all. But back in those days, wood rackets were something that I played with. I mean, I was a USTA ranked tennis player in 12s and 14s.
Ah,
And so I had to figure out a way to control my emotions, because it wasn't working. And I'd
right,
break a
right.
few more rackets, and finally my parents said, we're not buying any more rackets. So I had to move to the Jimmy Connors Tensor T2000. I know all these tennis rackets, dude. It was metal, so I can hit it on the ground and it would bend a little bit. So I just turn it over, hit it the other way, and I can try and keep it in a circle. But at some point, when it was about right when I was 14, I just figured this is not working for me, and it just doesn't work. So I can't do it. So that's why I got to let things go. And that was, my dad always used to say, because he was not an athlete, couldn't ride a bike, couldn't swim, very intelligent, but he said, I don't know how you did it, but that was your turning point, because you then went to a different level. He goes, you're very athletic in soccer and all these, baseball and all these kind of things, but mentally to figure out that that's not going to work is pretty big at age 14.
That's
And I'm not
huge.
going to say that I didn't get mad when I was 15 or 16 or anything like that, but when I started playing, volleyball, there's nothing to break, and you can't, you're only letting down more people. Whereas in tennis, I was only letting down myself.
Ah,
So it was, I see kids like that all the time now. They get all edgy, and I'm just like, listen, this is going to kill you. And I'm telling you right now, you can listen to me. And I tell them that exact same story. I say, you got to take it one point at a time. And it's a learned process. You're a good athlete, but you're going to have a bad day here and there.
That's so cool. That I didn't know you played tennis. That was my first sport as well. Are you familiar with this book, The Inner Game of Tennis?
Very, very much so.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Do you
yeah.
know guys like Jimmy Pugh and Jim Posset and Rick Leach?
Mm,
Dick Leach was the USC coach for many, many years.
okay,
Rick Leach was I went to junior high through college with him, and
cool.
he was the number one tennis player in California at the time, and he's won Wimbledon a few times, played doubles, so he's more of a doubles guy, but and lived in Laguna Beach, lives in Emerald Bay, I believe, still. But it was fun playing against him. Like, he would beat me 6-1, 6-1. That's the difference, right? I mean, he's number one.
Right.
I was 24, 26. So that's the difference between 1 and 26. I was good, and I never took lessons, and I'm sure I could have been good, but I picked up this volleyball thing and I just dropped my tennis racket like it was a hot poker chip and went with it. So
I love tennis. My grandfather, Cy Wexler, was one of the founding fathers of the Mulholland Tennis Club. So
mm-hmm.
he used to take me to the top of Mulholland and hit with him. And I just remember being a huge tennis fan. Pete Sampras, Roger Federer that's my favorite guy. Djokovic. I can go on and on about tennis, but love that sport.
Oh yeah, no, it's it's just like soccer. I can go on with all the old guys, Johan Cruyffs and the Franz Beckenbauers, which are, I mean, those guys are in the like 70s. That was intense soccer back in those days.
Awesome, man. Let's stay on emotion just for one more minute. How does the inspired feeling transcend one sport and carry over to their personal life?
Whew. Well, I know that, like I said earlier, my wife doesn't like my even keeledness. And I think that's definitely something that I learned in sports, and I'm not, she's like, we just got a new car and you're not even excited. I'm like, okay, it's a car, it's nice. Yeah, it's nice, or, you get a new house or something. I mean, I think we're on our 8th house, and then, it's like, for me, it's a big deal, right? It's a house. I got to make a payment, that kind of thing. So I'm not like, wow, yes, this is, this is, and she's like, oh, you got to get some excitement there. I'm like, that's just me. And I don't want to say that I'm not boring by any means, but those kind of things really kind of irritate my wife. and my kids, they notice that real fast too, because they notice, when they're not doing well. I'm not yelling. I'm not a coach that yells at them, right? I just kind of let them know, hey, how we doing out there? We're losing 15-0. How we doing? And,
Right.
You got to do this, you got to do that. I mean, I do yell at these kids to, like, it's kind of funny, but I motivate to motivate them to go for the ball, or it's in or out or whatever like that. Not, I told you 100 times, don't do, that stuff. I don't think works, but carrying that off to my, my outside profession life with my kids and all that kind of stuff, I think has helped a ton. Because my kids, it's not easy raising kids. My daughter, Caitlin's 24. She's going to be 25. She's getting married, hopefully, in September. Depends on what's going on. My son, actually going up tomorrow to pick him up. He just finished at Texas Tech. They don't have a graduation, so that's that kind of thing. But those guys have had their share of doing naughty things and really nice things, and I've had to keep my even keel. And sometimes you lose it a little bit, but I definitely, I mean, it's kind of sad, and my wife kind of gets probably sick of it, but volleyball has been such a huge, in sports in general, have been a huge part. I mean, it is my life, and I always have to, that's what I have to draw from. And so when I always say, oh yeah, well, volleyball, oh, it's always volleyball, but I don't have anything much more to draw from that standpoint, in those kind of situations. So I think that helps me, in the real world, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess,
for sure.
just like you probably run into those parents that think their kid's the best thing next to sliced bread, and they're yelling and screaming at you, and you're like, really? this is your kid, right? Okay, I just want to make sure. And you just gotta let it slide off. I mean, I was very, I guess, invested in my partners, when I was playing. And like when I broke up with Ricky, I was heartbroken. It just wasn't working, and I had to do, I broke it off. And then when I started playing with Jose, and we were number one team, we were rocking, and then he dumped me, and I was like, I was hurt. I mean, I'm not lying, I was hurt.
Right.
And he didn't give me a good reason, but it's kind of hard. It's hard in his scenario. I can see, that those kind of things. So I got invested, but after that, I think I looked at it more as a business. And so when I played with Karch, I mean, I would say I'm friends with Karch. Do we talk all the time? Not even close. But we could, I could run into him and we can go have lunch or whatever and catch up like it was, 2000, real fast.
Right. No, that's awesome. Well, let's go back to those moments for you as a player, and I want to know about flow. Can you identify when you are in the game, in the flow, or in the zone, or locked in?
Yeah, it's a fun place to be, for sure. There's a book, I believe it was called In the Zone, and I was kind of like, I've never heard of this before, but I think there's been a few times in my career where I've actually been there. I've probably been in the flow many, 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 many more times, but the zone is something that's just it's incredible, and things slow down and you can see things, and it's this it's almost cheating. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Flash, in the movies, and he's running
Yeah.
around fast and everybody else has stopped and he'll go ding, move something or whatever. But that's kind of what it was for me, at least, to be in the zone. And I think the more you concentrate, the harder you concentrate on everything that you're doing, definitely helps you get to that level. The flow for me, I think, was more of a more consistent thing, to where, you've played against a team a certain amount of times, like I can say Todd Rogers and Dax Holdren, and Todd even laughs about this. I mean, apparently he said something in his speech at the Hall of Fame, and he goes, "I want to thank Karch." I didn't hear it, so I might be butchering it, but he said, "I want to thank Karch and Adam for beating up on us so often," because I honestly think we probably, it was long ago, but we beat them probably 15 to 25 times in a row before they beat us, and they're like, "Can't you just let us beat you once? Come on, you guys got all the money." And they had their Santa Barbara hecklers. "Come on, you guys got all the money. These guys are just new," all this kind of stuff. So those are kind of fun. But when you get in the flow with a certain team, it's you have this confidence that, it's just there, and you've beaten this team. Them. There's that team doesn't really change their game a whole lot, and that just shows they don't know how to grow. So being in the flow most of the time is what I'd say I was doing, and it's a great feeling, once you get there, and again, it's a mindset,
Right.
and then it's reacting to the game.
I absolutely love that, Adam. I'm wondering if you can answer this. Is it possible to practice being in the flow?
I think you can. There's a way to try and practice anything. Like I said, if you're in the flow during a match in a tournament, why can't you do that during practice? So I definitely think, I've been in the flow at practices, but they're a little more chopped up. So
Hmm.
it's not like a continuous kind of thing. So you might be, like in a game, you're playing a game, you're switching sides every 5 points, and then the game's over. Practice, you're doing one certain thing, and then, okay, let's break, let's do another thing. Then, so you can do it. The answer is yes, I believe you can do it. And I think it just, it again just gets down to concentration and then execution.
Love that. And building on that, because you made it, you actually separated flow and in the zone, which I
Mm-hmm.
like. I appreciate that. So in the zone, can you practice that? And if you can you bank that? Is it possible to bank that and then,
If I could bank that, if I can put that in the bank, I'd be making bank. It's and it's really, I mean, and maybe I'm not that level of athlete, and because like I said, I've been in this zone a few times. Well, out of, I don't know, 200 and some odd tournaments I've played, being in the zone in a few times, and that was just like, that's when you're not making any errors and just things are just perfect, and I'd like to think, I guess I could be that, but it sure didn't see it that way, right? I mean, I don't want to say I'd like to think, again, I was very consistent, but I wasn't like up here consistent. I was like, if this is the consistency line, I was here, but I go to only go down to here, which is good, But yeah, being in the zone, if you can bottle that, you got it going on.
Yeah, well, Karch said the same thing. He's like, only a few times he could remember he was in that zone. It was more just about constant adjustments.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of cool for me to hear that too. I mean, it's cool for me to talk to you guys about that. Because as coaches, it's something that we're constantly watching our athlete, and maybe we can identify when they're locked in.
Hmm.
Um, but it's another thing to try to evoke that out of them at the right time.
Well, and I think especially for, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of these kids these days are being taught stuff that I wasn't taught until later,
Sure.
and it's just like they're the same thing. They're learning a different math at a younger age than we did. This is just how it works. They're starting to
Yeah.
use their brain a little bit more now, I guess. I don't know. But I'm not afraid to show them things that I think they can do, and they're going to eventually be able to do it at a younger age, or tell them mentally how they should approach a certain um, match or do something in practice. I'm not afraid to do that, because I think the more you get it into their heads that they can do it, the better off you're going to be in
Yeah.
the long run, because it's also about repetitiveness. So the more you repeat it, it's like I don't have to think about it. It's a reaction. So
Yeah, absolutely. Agree 100%. Is there anything else that comes to mind for flow and specifically to get back in it if you got out of it in the middle of the game?
I think if things are going great and then all of a sudden I tore my toe up or something like that, I think that it's a battle to kind of get back into it sometimes,
Right.
because you're thinking about. I was thinking about my toe. I mean, I could see the blood just even after he taped it up. I see the just blood just coming out of it. So I'm thinking too much about it. But then once you let it go and you get back into the game and the match, and you're not thinking about it, then I can think you can get back into the flow. So I think it's situational.
Yeah.
Um, if you're starting to if you're playing terrible, and then all of a sudden maybe that team's playing terrible or you're playing a little better, then you get back into the flow of things and you get back to where you were. So
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Let's move on. Let's talk about sources. Where do you get inspiration from, Adam?
I get inspiration from the kids I coach, from my kids themselves, my own kids and my wife, other athletes, um, hearing, not to bring up a sore subject, but, hearing all about Kobe and what I didn't know what he was all about, and his mentality and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was a great player, don't get me wrong, but, you hear all these things now. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Right.
And, it's, you want to be able to have that Mamba mentality, and stuff like that inspires me when I hear, other athletes or other people in the business world who do great things for people, and they're not out to make money, although everybody's got to make money. But when you do something not to make money and you're making enough to just kind of live or something, and you're helping other people, that's very inspiring too. So
Awesome. And how do you stay inspired when you're away from the game?
well, when I'm away from the game, I guess just the thought of actually being on the court all the time, or coaching my kids, or whatever. I mean, um, it is my life, and I do think about volleyball all the time. And is that a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing, but if I'm at the grocery store or something like that, and I see a watermelon or something, or a melon, I'm like, okay, I got practice today. I start thinking about what I'm doing in practice, or whatever. And
That's awesome.
it was sad. This is kind of sad, because this is how much volleyball I think about. In practice yesterday, I broke my pump, and so I was like, okay, whatever. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I broke my pump. But the night before, I had this dream about this guy that brought this pump, that had this pump. It was probably the size. It was tiny. It's probably the size of this little bass. It was like this, and it was an electric pump, and it was tiny. They like fit in your pocket and had a little cord that you plug in the wall. I said, where do you get that? I got to get one of those, you know? So I'm having these dreams about volleyball, you know, and if I can make a pump that big, that'd be great. Cause especially electric, and you just, you know, blow it up real quick. But of course my pump broke that morning. So I don't know. That's kind of weird.
That's awesome though, man. That's passion, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
no, it's the you know, when you're very passionate about something, and it's sad to see, you know, because I don't think there's a lot of passion in sports today. You know, the younger kids, it's just different. You know, it's just
right.
a different mentality, and
Right.
it's sad because I think a lot of kids are missing out on really, you know, because I ask kids all the time, you know, oh, you're going to go to school? Yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to go play volleyball? I don't know, 8. You know, I'm like, really?
Why do you think that? Do you think it's they're using it as a means?
I think, well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think that they just weren't brought up with a coach that was actually passionate about the sport that could help them with that and actually have them enjoy or love the sport that they're doing, you know. And yeah, sure, I think a lot of them are like, hey, I'm going to school, I'm going to get a scholarship, and you know, that's all I'm using it for. I also think it's a, you know, it's a mechanism, you know, like people don't want to get excited or don't want to get a scholar. Oh, you know, I'm not going to get a scholarship, so I'm just having fun, you know, because if they don't get the scholarship, right, then they might get looked at or frowned upon, like, oh, you're not good enough, you know. So I think it's kind of a mechanism for them to a defense mechanism, you know. And I just so I don't think that they just open themselves up and let it, you know, let everything pour out. And if it
Mm,
happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it's definitely a different mentality. I mean, my
right.
kid has to play. She's the best on the team. How come she's on the bench? You know the deal. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to be on the second team. You know, um, I don't know. You know, I mean, I talked to like my daughter. Perfect example. My daughter, shouldn't say this, but you know, when she was in high school, and she was a good volleyball player. I said, you know, going into your freshman year, I said, would you rather be on the varsity team and not play ever during the entire season, or would you rather be on JV and be the star? Oh, I'd rather be on the varsity for sure. You know, and that's kind of the mentality. You know, it's a status thing, and I don't know. I didn't think about that when I played. I was on the freshman team, then I made the JV, then I made varsity. You know, just kind of the evolution, if you will. And
Right.
some guys, you know, as a freshman made it, but I've seen a lot of people that made it as a freshman and never played for 4 years.
Right.
So
Right.
they just never got better. So I just don't think that the passion is there as much. That's just me.
Yep.
It's my guess. There's so many people out there playing volleyball now.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Totally. Hey, AJ, I want to respect your time, but I want to get into that lightning round. Are you good
Okay.
for time?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
absolutely.
Awesome. How do you define success and what does being successful mean to you?
How do I define success? You know, it's funny you ask that question because I can use it in a perfect example of Facebook, right? So there's a Facebook post about athletes like myself who are coaches. You know, are they good or are they bad, right? And that kind of thing. And this guy comes on and says, "Well, I can give you an example. You know, Adam Johnson was a great player, but he's mediocre at best, coach." Right? And I'm like, "What?" You know, okay, and he hasn't had any success. You know, he's got a little program, blah blah blah. You know, just kind of went off. And of course, I did not get the bait, did not take the bait. You know, and I just kind of said, "Does that first of all, that guy's never been to the level of had the level of success in this sport that I have. That's just an obvious." And the second was he has no idea what has transpired since I've moved to Austin. Right. So when I moved to Austin, everybody practiced even the top teams of the other big programs. They practice 2 days a week. And if they didn't get past regionals in May, they're done. Their season's done. Whereas in California, when I was playing and up until I left, everybody trains 3 days a week, and you go to an end of the year tournament no matter what. You go to the Davis Festival or wherever, AAUs or whatever. And so as soon as my club opened up, I started doing 3 days a week. Everybody else started doing 3 days a week. I started going to AAUs. Everybody started going to AAUs. So, my success, that to me is success. I'm changing how volleyball is. I'm changing the culture. I helped change it, I guess. My wife's all, you're so full of yourself, think you do all that stuff. I'm like, well, no one else was doing it, and then I did it, and everybody's following me. What am I, I'm not I'm not going out there saying that, but that's just kind of how it is. So, success is, I think, is each individual's, his own, he or she's, feeling for themselves, and not somebody else to tell you what your success is or not.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. And being a pioneer too, like you're paving your own path,
Right. Yeah. And you're always, it's, when you do stuff like that, you're jumping, I mean, making a move to Austin, Texas, that was a huge move for the family,
for sure.
And so it's worked out. I'm happy. The kids are doing well. They say, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Which not a lot of kids in California do.
It reminds me a little bit of John Hayden, because he did a bold move like that as well. He moved his family to Nashville and is starting the Hayden Volleyball Academy. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Another guy I look up to. Shout out John Hayden.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
AJ, how do you consider the idea of failure?
Oof, man, I don't know that I consider. I don't consider that an idea. I always look at it as learning. I don't think losing is failing. Yeah, I guess you can fail a class. I guess that's the only fail I would say, because when you're in a situation and it doesn't work out, I think you learn from it. So for me, I'm always learning. I mean, I was the guy. When we were at USC, we came in second. We lost in the finals. 3 years in a row. And I stood at the net and watched that team on the other side of the net get all excited and just celebrate. And I just kind of did that to myself because I want that, and that kind of gave me the oomph to kind of move forward. So I don't really look at failure. I kind of look at it as, I analyze it and say, how can I get better? I learn from it.
Love that. What are the most successful habits that you do on a consistent basis?
What are the most consistent, successful habits? I think, when it comes to coaching and probably talking to anybody, it's just trying to help raise people's level of their game.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I've done pretty much my life. I can't say that I raised Karch's level. I think that it was it was as high as I was going to get. And,
hey, if he's bowing to you, you must have done something.
Well, that's true. I take that back. No. But yeah, no, I just, I try and be as positive as possible and really just, when I see somebody down, I try and help them, get back up, because especially if they're a teammate, it's, nowadays it's all about me. Right. And that just doesn't work. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right? Because you're good. You're always, you're going to go to a good school and play or whatever, but you're never going to understand how to become a really good teammate. And you might not ever. I'm not saying that, the coach that you're going to won't be able to see different things or work with different things, but, I would just always try to raise their level of play or, their mentality or whatever.
Absolutely love that. So Adam, every guest I have on, I actually ask him to come up with a word that best describes themselves.
Oh, God.
So I'm gonna ask you that same thing, and I came up with 3 words. But I'll tell you.
Describe me.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you after, because I'm gonna put you on the spot.
You can't. That's cheating. Gosh, what word describes me? Oh my. I don't know. Why don't you give me your 3?
Okay. All right.
And then I'll see. I won't pick one, and maybe I'll pick up something else.
All right, that's cool. Fair enough. So, and there's reasons for each of them. I'll just tell you real quick where I came up with them. Dependable was the first one I came up with. Because I was thinking consistent, but you were so consistent with your side out game and your serving and just like that even keel mentality that you talked about. I could depend on you as a spectator to make something happen on the court.
Right.
Agile was another one because I'm also a defender, and I and the way your arm works, so the mechanics of the arm swing, just very quick. And then the last one I had was entertaining.
I was entertaining.
Yes, you were, and it was the reason why I came up with that word is because you did it with your play, you did it with your results. Being a top 10 finisher of all time, I mean, that's pretty entertaining, and especially now hearing the story about losing 3 national titles and carrying that feeling and using that as motivation. I mean, it obviously worked. So you definitely entertained quite a few people, including myself, out there.
Well, that's a tough one. I don't want to say something because it'll be brutal. I just, I like helping people and I like raising their level. So I don't know if compassionate's the right word. But something to that extent, I think is something that I've been doing forever. And that's kind of how I look at myself.
That's awesome. Compassionate or empathetic, maybe.
Empathetic, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
I mean, I'm not going to, if you and I are out there playing, I'm not going to brutalize you if you're messing up. I got to find a way to get you going.
Yeah. Good teammate. That's another one. That's awesome, man.
So you caught me off guard on that one, though.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. That's my job. All right. Just a few more here. For you, what is the most important lesson that has helped shape who you are today?
Let's see, most important lesson. Well, I probably shouldn't say that because it was, God, it's the one that's really been my number one reason, but I can't really say what it is. I'll just say, I guess it has to do with politics, and I didn't know what politics were until I found out what it meant. And so that's about as far as I can go. It's okay. Kind of a sore subject. Maybe you can kind of do some research and try and figure out what that really meant. But that was, finding out for the first time what politics were in sports at an older age. I don't like to say I matured later, but I was like, I didn't know what politics were. And then all of a sudden, boom, there they are. And that kind of was a huge lesson for me. It's like nothing's given to you and you've got to earn everything. But even when you are there able to earn something, it can be taken away from you, that quickly. So, try your hardest, make it was something that was like, make it hard for whoever it is to make the decision really hard, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know if that's really I don't know if that's a lesson, but that's the lesson that I took from the situation.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is you got to be cautious, right? I mean, you got to be careful of. Is that what you're saying? Like, be careful how you express stuff and.
Well, not so much that. I mean, it's more of you got to make sure. I guess the lesson was, like I said, nothing's given to you, and even sometimes when you're, when you earn a spot, it's not going to be there for you. So,
got you.
It's kind of one of those things. So
I got you.
I just made sure that if I was in a position again like that it was going to be hard. It would be hard for whoever to say no, I guess.
Okay.
So I played hard and did whatever I could.
I hear that. Kind of on the same lines of that. And I know you've been through some injuries as well. And maybe this is part of the answer to this next question. What is, can you share the biggest challenge you've been through on your journey?
Let's see. The biggest challenge. Let's see here. Well, I think the biggest challenge for me, I wouldn't say that was. I guess the biggest challenge right off the bat was with my dad.
Hmm.
He was, he didn't know too much about sports, and he loved the fact that he and my mom would come to all my volleyball games and all that kind of stuff. And then when I decided to turn, professional, my dad couldn't really help me. The only thing he was a corporate headhunter, so the only thing he can help me with is writing letters to sponsors and why they should sponsor me and all those kind of things. So I think the challenge that I had was to make it okay for him to feel, make him feel okay that, hey, I can do this,
Hmm.
because he's like, well, you've always had a coach, now you're your own coach. No one's going to tell you to get up. You got to get up. You got to go do it yourself. And I said, let's see, get up, try it myself, or wear a suit, 5 days a week or whatever. I'll give this a try. I was wearing a bathing suit, so that was, I think that was right off the bat. I think that was my biggest challenge. Was
Cool.
just convincing my dad that I can do this,
I like that.
because
That's a
he
tough
was
one.
all set, man. He had it wired. I was going to go into Johnson and Johnson pharmaceutical products, and he had me a job and all the above. So, and then, of course, when I told him afterwards, after I was done playing, I go, now what can you do for me? He laughed. He goes, you're too old. You're on your own, And I was like, whoa. But he was, which is fine. I don't mind being on my own. But, he's like, hey, you're on your own. I
Yeah, but
can't
that's
help you.
yeah, but that's a great answer to that. That is a huge challenge, just like hey, like I'm gonna go down this road over here. I don't know what it's gonna lead to, but I'm gonna do it because that's how
And
I feel.
my parents were always my number one fans, so, it wasn't like, okay, you got a 13th in your first tournament. I still got this job for you over here, it was not even close to that.
Okay, so as a coach, what is the biggest challenge you see for your athletes?
Ooh, uh, well, it has to do with social media. I would say the biggest challenge is social media, because I think, not being in that era, of course, of social media, but it's interesting because not being in it. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I first got on the tour, and when I played with Ricky Ludes, we made three of the first live telecast shows on NBC.
Hmm.
So I went from kind of a nobody to all of a sudden I'm up here, where, guys like, Hav and Dodd and, Sinjin and Randy, who've been doing that for years, I mean, people are knowing who I am, and I'm not saying they don't know who they are, but I elevated myself real fast because of that. And, because it wasn't social media, that was just live NBC. And so everybody watched it. So now you've got all this social media for the kids, and they're looking at all these guys doing the social media stuff, and trying to differentiate from the ones that are the good players and the ones that are I don't want to say bottom feeders, but ones that are never, maybe not make it, but appear to be the best, right? They're saying all the good things, and they're doing oh, he's so cute, and they're listening to him. So I think for me, that's the biggest challenge, but also to just, it's a different era of athletes again, and it's just having them understand that nothing's given to them. I mean, it was great that I did a Zoom thing with Sarah Hughes with this beach group. She was kind enough to come on, and she said, hey, even if you're getting a scholarship, you got nothing at school. You're like zero right then. And to try and get that, because everybody's been kind of handed stuff, I think, these days. Oh, I'm going to make sure you're on the best team. I'm going to pay the most, and I'm going to have the most private lessons, so you're going to get the most play time because of that and stuff like that. So they get a false sense of security.
Sure.
And I tell them how it is, and they appreciate that. But that's a challenge, because they think, oh yeah, I'm going to walk right into this, like, okay,
Yeah,
talk to me in two
absolutely.
years.
Right, right. And just building on that for me, listening to you say that about the youth athlete, I think to me, the social media part of the youth athlete experience is just almost taking over. I mean, it's a challenge to see the athlete not look at their phone, right?
Right.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
you
No,
know,
every time out during practice, little water break, they're all looking at their phones. They're all doing that. And, I, of course, set rules and say, that thing pops out, you even look at it, you're going to do a little coach on one. So,
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a challenge that I've been giving our athletes. It's been actually been kind of working. It's almost the opposite of a rule. It's a challenge, and I give them. I say, hey, can you get 1 hour less screen time per week? And, because you can see your screen time on there,
sure, sure.
and so it kind of works, kind of doesn't, but it's a challenge, and athletes love challenges.
Well, I'll try that because it is crazy to see how kids these days are attached to their phone. And I'm not going to lie, I'm attached to mine
Me too.
in a different way. I'm not even close. I mean, these guys are, of course, this all TikTok stuff, and they've got all these dances, and they start doing these dances like 5 minutes before the practice. And I'm like, well, this one only took me 4 days to really get down. I'm like, what else are you doing? I mean, how much time are you really for a dance? What? So that's beyond me. I get it. They're kids and stuff, but that's a lot of wasted time. And hopefully they'll understand that. But they're having fun with it right now.
Yeah, for sure. I just got a few more for you, AJ.
Sure.
How important is the idea of having impact to you?
How important? Say that one more time now.
Yeah. How important is the idea of having impact to you?
Can you use that in a sentence, please? No.
I know it's a tough one, but
It's,
just think about is I guess what I'm trying to ask, is it a driving factor for you, or is that
what is the driving fact? Is the
having
impact
impact to
having
other
impact on players and stuff? Well, I mean,
or fans,
well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say, if you're looking at that from that standpoint, I love, just kind of like what my dad did. He was a corporate headhunter, and he was telling me, he's like, Adam, you don't know, I've changed hundreds of lives, and he's, because what he would do is he'd tell these guys, hey, you need to go to this company, you need to stay there for, whatever time, and then you can move on to do whatever. And he used to get these letters that said, Phil, thank you so much for your guidance and all this kind of stuff. It's changed my life,
right?
and my family, is thriving, and all this kind of stuff. So for me, I kind of look at that, the same thing with volleyball. And not everybody looks at it that way, but I would love more than anything all these kids that I train and train hard, and they don't have to, but it would be nice if they came back once in a blue moon and said, hey, just want to let you know, I really appreciate what you did. And sometimes it takes 10 years, they say those things because they don't, they don't, it doesn't phase them at the moment, and they get all mad at you or something. But then 10 years later, they realize, what, he was really trying to do something for me. And, and just a thank you. It's, and it's not, I don't mean it like it doesn't happen. It happens pretty often, which is cool. But that's that's the kind of impact I like to have on people's lives. I like to have some sort of you know impact that help them become better at whether it's volleyball or school or whatever. Because I'm pretty much into the, hey, you need to do the volleyball, but school comes first.
Mm-hmm.
School's always going to come first. You gotta do that. Period.
Cool. I definitely resonate with that. I appreciate that. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and why? From who?
Whew.
Tough lightning round questions, right?
I know, man. I'm sure that's I'm sure the best piece of advice came from my dad, and he was probably staying because of being in business, you have to make all kinds of connections and all that kind of stuff. So he said, hey, as soon as you start being introduced to some people in your school or whatever, stay in touch, get an address book. And of course that was a lot harder back in our day because we had to actually write it in. But he said, get that together, and when you meet people, when you're on the road playing volleyball, and you meet some person that's a CEO of a company or something like that, just just jot it down. And I think that was the best piece of advice that I received. And some of those things worked for me. And, it's always fun to do.
Awesome. What is your ultimate why?
What's my ultimate why? My ultimate why is, why do these kids have to be on their phone the whole time? Why? I mean, at the end of the day, I just, I get it, but I don't. And then, like I said, I can understand it because I'm attached for my business and whatnot. But um, that right now, that just comes to my mind because it's just so in my face with all these kids, and there's, I like your challenge that, and I'll throw that out to them, let you know how that works. But,
Yeah, do that.
I'd rather like to discipline the other way, like coach on one. So and it's good because, when I do that, they don't do it. And, it's a good thing. I mean, they should be. And that's the sad thing is you got a 2-hour practice, turn your phones off and don't even worry about it. You're just here. You're here. It's just like if you've got a Spanish test that you've got to study for and you're terrible in it. There's nothing you can do now. So just train as hard as you can. And then when you get home, you can start studying. So that's my why, I guess.
I like that. Looking back on your journey, is there anything you wish you could change and why?
Oh yeah, I'd get a different wife. No, I'm just kidding. Is there anything that I would change? I haven't told this story, and I don't know how big this is going to get out. But if I had to change something in my career, I probably would have. In 1990, I was playing with Stevens, and we were playing against Karch and Brent Frohoff in the semis of U.S. Championships in Hermosa. And I was starting to cramp, and we were up 12-8. And I was starting to cramp, and I thought, if we win this game, I'm not going to be able to play in the finals. So I kind of, I don't want to say I threw the game, but we, we lost that game, put it that way, because I knew that I couldn't go. And so if I had to do it over again, I would have won that game, period. And then if I couldn't have gone again, then I just don't go. But I did ask Karch after the season, or when he came back from playing over in Europe, I said, I'd like to be your partner. And he said, well, no, I got to go with Brent just because we've had success. And I go, I know, but I'm better than him. So I think if I had played through it and we had won that game, not saying we would have, but if we did, I think that I would have had a better chance of maybe playing with him at that time. So that's
Cool.
that's one of my things I wish I could do over again.
I appreciate the vulnerability with that. Thank you for sharing that.
Because that'll get out there and who knows what's going to say. Oh, sure you did. Yeah, you say you just let me win. I'm like, well, do what you want. That's what it is.
So sorry, it's a little loud. There's some construction going on, but I only have 2 more questions for you, and then
Sure.
That's it. So going back to the whole idea of having a pyramid of success, John Wooden's pyramid of success, or the pyramid of inspired living. How important do you think it is for an athlete to have some sort of roadmap or compass to try to know where they're trying to get to, like whether it's playing in college or win an AVP?
I think it's I really didn't have anything like that. I mean, I honestly didn't know I was going to play volleyball in college. Okay, I didn't know that. And then when I got to college, and I probably should have had a better idea, but because every summer I was either playing on the World University Games or junior national teams or whatever it was, but I didn't think I was going to be playing on the national team. And then there I was, so I didn't have a roadmap, and then I didn't think, okay, now I'm going to do go overseas and now and have this all mapped out, and that's just me. But I think looking at things today, I don't think it hurts at all. And I think they're each one of those stepping stones is a goal. And if someone wants to put something on that, I would, hope and suggest that they don't put it too high, because it's a big mountain to climb. And maybe I didn't do it because I didn't think I could not do it. I just didn't do it, to be quite honest with you. And but today's kid, if you will, I can see them, oh yeah, I'm going to go play in college, and D1. And if they don't get it, then they commit suicide. I don't think that's so I say, I think that's a good idea. I think baby steps, and kind of go about it that way. But the roadmap definitely sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. And I would say that I think it's unique and different for every single person. I think John Wooden's
absolutely.
Yeah. I think his pyramid worked for his teams and during that time, and I would just encourage everyone, coaches too, parents too, everybody should know kind of where they are trying to get to,
Sure. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. What does the idea of fulfillment mean to you?
I think just giving 100% at what you do. And, if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I've done everything I can, and this is where I'm at, or whatever, I think that's all you can really ask from yourself. I don't want to say it's a simple question, but I tell that to my kids after every loss. I go, can you guys go in the mirror right there and look at yourself and say, did you give 100%? If you can give 100% and you lose, then fine. I'm okay with that. But
right.
If you can't say that, then we got to work on some things.
Adam Johnson. Wow. That was really inspiring. Thank you so much for making the time and just sharing pieces of your mindset and insights and thoughts and experiences.
Oh no, it was fun. I got some off my chest.
I just want to give you another opportunity to just mention your club, the website, and any Instagram handles. Yeah,
well, the website is as they say out here, it's an ego-driven website. It's got my program's name is the Adam Johnson Volleyball Academy, so it's adamjohnsonvolleyball.com. That's the website. We're on Instagram at Adam Johnson VB Academy. So that's always cool. I've got a Twitter that I never use. So that's not a big deal. So those are the two big things that we can give a shout out to.
Awesome. I'm going to link those below this video as well, so people can get a hold of you or they can check out your club.
Awesome. Yeah. My telephone number is on there.
Very cool. Adam, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right.
Let me know when it all comes out.
I will. I definitely will.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by DAF Global. If you're looking to start a podcast, or you have a podcast and you're looking for editing services, hit up my guys, Oliver and Garrett at DAF Global. They're awesome. They help me with this podcast, and they take care of all kinds of different services like editing and audio enhancement, and they're great to work with. They're also offering a 10% discount to all Within the Game listeners. So hit my guys up at DAF Global on Instagram, and also on their website, www.dafglobal.co.uk.